Greetings. You have found the real life vlog where we talk with people about living above their circumstances by having authentic relationships full of empathy and love. The real life vlog is brought to you by the R.E.A.L Foundation, a 501c3 charity that strives to bring resources and education about the dangers of today's drugs, the connection between mental illness and substance use, and how teaching healthy coping skills to life traumas really is the best harm prevention there is. On today's episode of The Real Life, Bev Pomering, the executive director of the R.E.A.L Foundation, is talking with Abbie Lee from the Prescription Playbook. Bev and Abbie are sharing how living real has changed their lives, and their desire is to help normalize conversations about the not-so-fun things that happen in life. Now let's listen in on their passion is to break stigmas and help others live healthy lives.
Hello, thank you for joining us today. And I am here with Abbie Lee, and we're just going to have a conversation today about living real, talking about opioid prevention, mental wellness, and stigmas, and how all of that plays into the passions we have in the work we do. So Abbie, you work in the field of community care. Please tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Thanks for having me today, Bev. I am a prevention specialist project lead. I work for an organization called Omni Youth Services, and through that organization, I oversee two grants, one called the Human Performance Project, or the Illinois Human Performance Project, and the other being the Prescription Playbook, which is partly why I am here today with you. I know that's the project I work the most closely with you and the R.E.A.L Foundation on. That project functions under the SOR, or the State Opioid Response Grant, and like I mentioned, the project we run is called the Prescription Playbook.
Awesome. And we've spoke previously about your passions of helping people, and in the specific area of prevention. Can you tell us where that passion comes from?
Yeah. So I've always had a passion just for nonprofit work. That was kind of my goal when I was getting my degree, was to just go into a field that allowed me to work with a nonprofit that was active in whatever community it was that they served. And as I kind of went into kind of my interview for this position here almost 5 years ago, which is crazy now, it was brought to my attention that the position I was applying for was under the State Opioid Response Grant. I had never thought about going into specific prevention work. Like I said, my passion really aligned with just doing something good that helped people.
Yeah.
But in my past, of course, I think like everybody in our society now, unfortunately, we have all been impacted by substance use and opioid use.
In one way or another.
Exactly, in some form or another.
Yeah.
So I lost my grandma to substance use disorder and prescription medication overdose when I was a freshman in high school. So it was definitely a really hard thing to battle at that time. But as an adolescent, you don't think that some of those negative things are going to come with you into your adult life and then actually help you flourish into a career.
Yes.
That helps impact some of that work.
So especially at that time, you're like, how could this ever be good?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, when I went into my interview and they said that to me, I left that interview just feeling so excited because I felt like I had finally figured out exactly what I wanted to do. And I never knew what that connection was going to be, right? I didn't know that later on in my life, I would actually be able to do something good with something so negative that happened in my life. So that drives a lot of the passion that I have for this work. I always say, thinking back, I'm like, I wish, even myself, looking back at my college and high school experience, no one really ever came in and talked to us about the dangers of specifically prescription medication use or misuse, and what those dangers looked like. And so I just always say, looking back, I wish myself and even my grandma, had a prevention specialist or someone like you, Bev, with the R.E.A.L Foundation, who took time to educate the community about some of those dangers rather than maybe stigmatizing or feeling like those people are doing something so bad that we shouldn't help or educate them on.
Well, exactly. So. Yeah, it's just not talked about enough.
Yes.
And stigmas play a huge part in that.
Absolutely.
And preconceived notions of what drug use is.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to your family or anything, it's just a perfect example of how there is no stereotypical person or
Absolutely.
family that this affects.
Yeah.
It goes across all socioeconomic backgrounds, races. Anyone
You're
can be
exactly
affected.
right.
And
Absolutely.
I often teach about how it is not just those who have lost their jobs and who, are homeless, and that, person you see in TV and movies.
Yes.
It is children, it is elderly, it's everyone in between.
Yeah, as I was going to share, my grandma was an older individual, right? It was someone she had kids and grandkids at her age, and she was still somebody battling with substance use disorder. We often think, like you said, you think of those maybe younger individuals who are they just can't figure out what they want to do with their lives or whatever it might be. There's that negative connotation. And like you said, that preconceived judgment that we have that someone who's dealing with substance use should look like this and fit into this box, right?
Yeah.
But like I shared in the beginning, we all know that it doesn't discriminate, right? It really doesn't. So.
Yeah, and we've had shared seminars before where we talk about the different risks from prescription use versus social use, and the risks are the same, really. Absolutely. When it comes down to it.
Just the access point, right?
It is.
Access point could look
and
different,
then because everybody's body reacts differently to the drugs, and everybody's situation is different, and you may be going through something at that time where it just lines up where you're taking these medications for a completely legal and needed purpose. And it leads into an addiction. Absolutely. Which nobody ever plans for.
No, we often work with athletes. It's a big target audience that we have, and the story I hear over and over and over again, right? This athlete has injury, dealing with some sort of mental health disorder or issue behind the injury, right? And then they learn that because we know that opioids can short term help mimic or mute some of the emotional pain that we are feeling, they realize that, right? And so in turn it creates this like really bad cycle of it's helping their physical pain, right? But it's also helping them mentally cope with what they're dealing with. So it puts them in a really tough situation.
And often leads to that downward spiral. Absolutely. That where stigma really affects, helping someone get out of that.
Absolutely.
Because they feel ashamed. They don't
know how, or they're afraid to ask for help.
They think it's their fault, and so that is why I created the Real Life vlog, because I want to just talk about it, talk about the reality of life, and that we are all going through similar situations. And so as the real in our name is an acronym: relational, empathetic, authentic, and loving. So with that acronym in mind, person that has really just motivated you to live in a loving and caring manner that you do?
Absolutely. Well, when I look at just my family, so my mom and even my sisters, we all are doing are in lines of work that help people. My mom has been a nurse for years, and so I think just that genuine passion to help people, whether it's in a medical field or it's in a field that's more policy or governmental, or it's in a field like I do in the prevention field. We all do work that we just want to help people. And so I think I get that passion just is a part of my family. We can all kind of jive and bounce off of each other. Exactly. And then, like I said, going back to just like my grandma, and like I just feel like back then, and like even when I was in high school, and I just feel like there was such a lack of education. And so it just really drives me to do this work. I know that education and awareness are the root of prevention, and I truly believe that we can hopefully prevent as much of the overdoses, or as many of the overdoses that we're seeing in our country with education and awareness. So
I believe.
Whether, like I said, I see my mom in a hospital at the nurse level, or I see my sisters kind of going into homes and helping children, whatever it might be, that passion to just do good and help people, I think it just kind of flows in the blood of my family for sure.
Awesome. So. That's awesome. Great family. All right, and moving on to more of that empathetic piece of life. What is the one stigma, false belief that you hope people will learn and change their perspective on?
So it's similar to actually what we were talking about earlier, is that it can happen to anybody. Opioid use disorder, substance use disorder, addiction, any of it, right? And in any degree, it does not discriminate. It can happen to a very wealthy older woman who spent most of her time shopping and driving her red convertible around town, right? My grandma. It can happen to her just as easily. It can happen to somebody living in poverty or without resources or going through a traumatic situation. And it can also happen to families who are extremely stable, families who have children who are in athletics. Maybe they excel in some of the athletic or academic fields that they're in. Maybe they're getting a scholarship even to go to a big university, or they're going pro, whatever it might be, right? It just does not discriminate. You can be the richest or the poorest. You can come from whatever background it might be, and substance use disorder, it can affect you just as easily as it can affect really anybody in a situation or in that box that as a society we might put people with substance use disorder into. So it just doesn't discriminate. And getting that point across and telling parents, right? We often hear parents saying like, "Oh, my kids aren't making those choices, or they don't misuse pills," right? And we know right now with fentanyl being such a big thing, it takes one time. Experimenting one time can take somebody's life. And so it's just understanding that it's just as important for parents whose adolescents are not choosing to use substances to have those conversations as it is with those who potentially are, right? It just doesn't discriminate. And we all need to understand it in some way or form that we need to have these conversations across the board. It's not just after things are happening. We can't be reactive, we have to be proactive.
Yes, so. Prevention is key. It truly, truly is, and that prevention comes from education.
Yes, absolutely.
And we, as the seminar that I teach says, we're not in the 80s anymore. These drugs are different. They're manufactured different, they're stronger. Fentanyl was a game changer. And we can't live with this adage of, it's a teenage phase, or they're just, having fun. Right. We turned out fine, everything's great. Well, times are different.
Absolutely.
And we can't do that. And so that is just another level of, to put it bluntly, ignorance that society has. And it just is generational, and it's time to break that.
I always say, as adolescents, when we were younger, misusing or using substances, really, it was still illegal, it was still dangerous, there were still risks associated. But the possibility that whatever you're consuming is actually not that, and it's fentanyl, that risk, it just wasn't there 5 or even 10 years ago. But right now, the chances that your adolescent consumes one pill, and the DEA's new campaign is one pill can kill. And it sounds like a harsh name, but it's so real. Because there are so many adolescents who are experimenting one time. They're feeling stressed during finals week, and their friend says, here's a Xanax, or here's an Adderall, or here's an opioid, whatever it might be, any of the pills out there, right? And it's not what they think it is. And so there's just so many adolescents and people in general losing their lives because they're not educated or they're not aware of some of the dangers.
Feeling they're invincible, it's not going to happen to me.
Exactly.
And, that's a hard thing to overcome. Everyone feels invincible, it just, you never think of the worst that can happen.
Right.
It's, human nature. But reality is reality,
Right.
and we need to.
And for those of us who have been affected, right? Like
Yes.
we now unfortunately understand the importance of it. It's trying to get people to understand how important it is before they lose a loved one in their life or lose their own life.
Yeah,
right?
because it is too late.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you see people really missing the mark on, what empathy really is and understanding that.
I think not having that mentality that it won't happen to me, it won't happen to my family, or it won't be my kid, right? It won't be my adolescent. That's where I think when we have that mentality, then it's really hard to try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes who is experiencing that battle, right?
Exactly.
And so I think trying to like break that mentality that that's what, unfortunately, like it could be your adolescent. It might be your husband or your brother or your mom or yourself, right, who is dealing with something. And so it's breaking that mentality to then get people to understand that it can affect anybody. It can affect you just like it can affect me, just like it can affect a person across the street, right? There is really no one that it can discriminate. You never know when you might be injured, or you might get your wisdom teeth removed, or you might have a surgery where you're prescribed. And so it's so important to educate ourselves and be aware, but it's mostly important first, right, to empathize with those people who already are dealing with substance use disorder, so that we can understand that it happened to them just as easily as it can happen to me.
Yeah, and be willing to walk with them, and
support those communities.
Yes.
And volunteer with groups like the R.E.A.L Foundation. And not just I think it's fantastic to maybe volunteer or donate or give money to lots of other organizations in a community, but we don't often think about those doing prevention work like the R.E.A.L Foundation. So it's recognizing, look at the news and look at our society. You can't watch the news or scroll on Facebook or do anything without seeing something in regards to fentanyl, xylazine now being a big thing, overdose, just in general, it's there. So it's getting our communities to understand that it can affect them, like I said, just as it can affect those people.
Exactly.
And what can we do as a society, really, to work together to help battle it? It can't just be those of us who have been affected. It takes everybody, right?
No, yeah, it takes relationships and true empathy to want to make a difference. Absolutely. And not have that preconceived, discrimination that you may have grown up with that you don't even realize is there.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they're ingrained so deep in our culture that it takes a major event for you to realize, oh, I didn't even realize I thought that way, or acted that way. Yeah. And so being willing to accept behaviors of yourself and your own thoughts and be willing to change them. So I would 100% agree with you on that. So I'm big about being authentic. Hollywood likes to, gloss over everything, and social media, you get to pick and choose exactly what you look like, and, even, touching up this, or that. So we're going to move into being authentic and talking a little bit more about ourselves and who we are. So do you have like a motto or a mantra, life verse that you live by?
Yeah. So I've sometimes heard this phrase be coined as like toxic positivity. That's like a new like trendy word, which we all probably have our own thoughts and opinions on that. But I truly believe and stand behind that everything happens for a reason. That's probably, like I said, like kind of a cheesier cliche phrase, but it's one that I have just carried with me my whole life. Like I explained earlier, I went through a pretty hard time losing my grandma to something that I didn't even know about at the time. And I never thought that there would be a reason that something so negative now positively is impacting my life, right? So I just truly believe that everything happens for a reason. I always say you might not know that reason now, or in 2 weeks, or in 2 years, or even ever, right? But everything that happens to us in our life opens up a door to the next phase of our life. And so everything, I truly believe that everything happens to us for some reason. And even if it's not a reason that you want, right, or a reason that is on the path that you're wanting to go down, even, shifting gears or something happening to you that actually totally changes your path, there's a reason for it, right?
Yeah.
And later on in life, that experience is, you had to go through that to get to where you are now. So that's just my life motto. I always say, and I have these like light bulb moments sometimes where I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to be here. That happened for a reason.
Yeah.
You look over and you see a specific bird, or you see a phrase, or a color, or anything, right? And you're just like, okay, this is
confirmation.
Exactly, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's truly my life motto. I say it all the time. And like I said, sometimes people take that in like a toxic positivity way. But when I explain it a little bit deeper and not just throw out the everything happens for a reason, because bad things do happen to people, right? And so it's really hard if you are going through a tough time and someone says that to you. Well, everything just happens for a reason. That would be a really hard thing to hear, right?
Yeah.
But it's just knowing that experience, no matter how tough it is taking you to the next step that you have to
trying
get to.
To instill hope that, you know, yes, it is extremely painful right now. You know, my story, you know, exactly, you losing your grandma. These are things that nobody ever wants to go through. People should die of old age. That's, you know, the way life is supposed to be, right? But it doesn't. Reality is that, you know, bad things do happen.
Absolutely.
But what are you going to do with that? You know, any of us can be sour and bitter and be stuck in whatever situation we have found ourselves in.
Absolutely.
But if we, you know, use that pain, turn it into a purpose, and find healing in that, it's not only, you won't even just find yourself healing. It brings so much completion to, you know, so many different scenarios and lives, and just, you never know who's watching, who's listening, who may see one little tidbit, who's watching this today. We don't know. And hopefully, you know, it will help just that one person know that they're not alone, or know that they need to kind of look in the mirror and, you know, what can I change about myself and my situation, and how can I help the person next to me?
How can they take maybe what they're going through positively or negatively to really just help them get to their next step, their next goal, whatever it is that they want to achieve in their life. It's kind of taking it and looking at, there's always something positive, right, and everything negative. Like I said, it just depends on timing, right? And sometimes you need to let yourself heal to get to that place, to be able to look back, of course. But I truly believe I would not be here in this place talking to you on this couch right now, Bev, if it wasn't for something I experienced as an adolescent. I don't think I would have the same passion that I do now that I if I didn't go through that experience.
I would have never met you, because I would have never been, you know, so passionate about opioid education.
We would never have joined the same coalition, had the same passion and mission. So it truly, everything that happens in our life truly takes us to the next
And beauty
place.
really can come out of ashes, and that's what I try to live by and remember, because
I sure do.
I have to truly believe that, you know, because life can be so dark and so dismal, and if you don't have that positive purpose and drive, you know, it'll take you down. And so,
and use that relationship that we've had with those that we've lost to fuel our passion and the work that we're doing, right? We know the relationship we had, and we know they're cheering us on from wherever we believe they are, right? To keep doing this work, and their support, and you know that you feel supported from those that we've lost, like I said, wherever you believe they are in the work that we're doing.
It doesn't matter, you know, where you sit, you know, on belief in life and death and the hereafter, you know. You know, just use that love you have. It's so painful because of the amount of love you have for that person. And so, you know, take that pain and show people the love that you had, and share it now with other people. You can't share it with that person that is gone, but don't waste it. Yeah, no, share it with others.
Yeah, you sure do that too.
Any like one thing that you do or that you process or whatever it may be that keeps you grounded and helps your mental wellness?
Yeah. I would say, I know you said one thing. I want to say two things.
No,
the first one is going to be walking. So I love like a change of environment and of course being outdoors. So anytime where I'm just like, like I just need like a change of environment, a change of space for a few minutes, I'll grab my dog and go for a walk. But just being outside and getting fresh air is something that is always good for me.
Yes.
Even if it's cold, I always say like we live in Illinois, it snows here, but it is relaxing to bundle up. You really bundle up, right? The scarf, the gloves, the hat, everything. But to just get all bundled up even in the winter and just get outside.
Just like crisp air.
Exactly, yeah. So that's one of my go-to things, and I'm like, okay, I need a moment.
Yeah.
And then the other is podcasts. I love podcasts. I'm always listening to a podcast when I'm driving, when I have any free time. I usually always have an AirPod in of some sort, just listening to. I'm a people person, right? So I just love hearing people talk and share their journeys, just like we're doing today, jumping on a podcast and just hearing people share what they're going through, what they've been through, what they're looking to do, whatever it might be. Those are two ways, and sometimes together, right? I'll go for a walk and listen to a podcast. But those are two ways that I definitely just kind of help keep myself well, and it's an escape for me, essentially.
Well, yeah, and you get to learn something from it. Exactly. and turn it right around. Yes. And I'm sure you have felt that that comfort in knowing that someone may be going through a similar situation, that I'm not alienated by this, XYZ.
Right. Or a thought you've had is not as crazy as you think it is,
right?
There's someone else thinking that same thing. And so, I just enjoy, like you said, like we're doing today, is just allowing people to hear kind of our stories and hopefully relate to us in some way.
Sure. So I'm not a believer in all you need is love, as the Beatles may have coined or whatever. But of course, love and loving relationships are necessary, and we need more of them. They've been linked to lower risk of disease, better health habits, increased longevity. What is your favorite way to show love?
My favorite way to show love is definitely through words. I am like a just word person. I love words. I love language. I'm always, showing or expressing my gratitude or my love, usually always through words. I love giving gifts too, but it's usually connected to words of some sort. I love just encouraging people. I think an area that people sometimes are lacking in is encouragement. And just someone saying like, you're doing a great job. So even when I'm at a grocery store, I'm at a restaurant. I was at a restaurant the other day, and it was a younger, probably a high school student, kind of checking people out. It was really busy in there. You could tell he was a little overwhelmed. And I just said, like, you're doing a really great job. Like, I hope you have a great day. And so little things like that. I'm one of those people who's complimenting people in the grocery store. I love your shoes. I love your hair.
It can change someone's day.
It truly can. And when you see their face light up, I know how it makes me feel when someone takes time to say, like, I like your shoes, or I like your glasses, whatever it might be. So I just think words of affirmation is maybe how I would really say that in like the love languages. Whether it's my loved ones or in my relationship or in work or at the grocery store or whatever it might be, words are something that I think are so powerful. If we can use them in a positive way, I truly think we could just change the way that we look at our lives. I think there's so much positivity out there. There's of course a lot of negativity, but if we can try to find like what is the little positive part of our experience at the grocery store, right? Instead of just keeping your head down or putting your headphones in and just ignoring what you need. And sometimes we do need that, of course. But how good does it feel, even internally, right, to look up and kind of observe who you're grocery shopping with, and just say, like, have a great day, like, I like your shirt, Beth.
And you don't know what they're going through,
exactly,
and how that may change just a little bit of their day to make it a little bit better.
Exactly. So words are they're so powerful, like I said. So I just
I try more and more to I may think it, but speak it.
Yes.
You know,
It's
they
hard
can't
too.
read your mind.
Yeah,
you
it can
know?
be hard. It can feel like you feel like you're talking to a
And they
stranger,
say-
which you are, right? And it can
But
just
they're
be
human just
yeah,
like
they're
us.
human, right? And like I said, they people need that encouragement,
Yeah.
even if they don't think they do, right? So just looking for opportunities just to pour into other people, whether it's people we have personal relationships with, or we don't, right?
Well, and I just mentioned, you know, you don't know how that phrase or statement may change their day or their life.
Yeah.
Has there been, can you remember a time where someone did something for you and showed love that has just really stuck with you?
Yeah. Let me think specific. I'll give you a good example here.
And it can be even, maybe it wasn't even to you, but you witnessed an event that really like, you're like, wow, I need to do that more. Or
I'll give you two examples, one personally and then one that I've observed. So
Sure.
one personally is I recently transitioned into kind of a management or lead position here or with my organization. And pretty new opportunity for me. I love mentoring people and I love building relationships, so that part came very naturally to me.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like, am I equipped for this? Should I do
Yes.
this? And something that I loved is that a lot of the coworkers that I worked with actually took time to write like personal emails to our supervisor, kind of requesting or encouraging that I was, you know, given the position. And I cried that whole week because I was just like, no one's ever like, I just have never felt someone like genuinely be like, you deserve this and I'm going to fight for you for it. And it was
That's
really
awesome.
cool. I'm also someone who I don't always like attention on me. Like I shared earlier, I love to be the one giving all of the love. So receiving is something I've always been working on. But that was just really cool to just see like people like wanting me to take that position, knowing like I would be a good leader and all of the things, I'm sure the very nice things that they said in an email that I probably would never have said about myself, right? So I definitely felt a lot of love just from my coworkers and people I've worked with for years, and just encouraging me and our higher ups to kind of put me into this position.
That's awesome.
So
That's
just
awesome.
thankful
Well
for that.
deserved. You do a great job.
Thank you.
And I understand, like, you know, it's so easy to give other people praise
Yes.
and
Yeah.
encouragement to other
Uh-huh.
people, but if you have a history where you may not have always heard that,
Yes.
it is difficult
Mhm.
to really believe it.
Yes.
And I just recently had a similar situation where, you know, I left my full-time position, and I think it was one of the first jobs in my entire working career where I could genuinely feel that people just would miss me, or you know,
Your value. Mhm.
they really expressed you know, the value they saw in me, and it was difficult to hear, but it's so encouraging and life affirming.
Absolutely.
You know, when someone shares their true feelings of you, you know, and you know, it just goes to say that if you're thinking it, just share it.
Yeah, say it.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
Someone, like I said, that was something that I mean, could I have shared those things for myself? Yes, absolutely. But, you know, coming from other people and knowing that they felt that way about me and I felt the same way about them, it was just really cool for them to hear. And then on the flip side, I was just going to say, you know, any opportunity I have through our work to go into a community, whether it was we did the International Overdose Awareness Day event, which was big, or we went to the school at Ononega High School and we presented to parents. Anytime that I get to go like out into a community event or at a community event, I feel that love. You hear people come up to our table and just say like, thank you for being here. I've experienced this, or I've been through this, or I understand the importance of this. And so I always enjoy any opportunity to get into a community and do this prevention work because it's usually received really well by people.
Yeah.
So that's another opportunity. I always see love. People are always thanking us. I'm sure you get the same thing. Just thank you for doing this work and thank you for taking this on, because not everybody is willing to do it. So.
Well, exactly, and we know it's needed.
Yes.
And it's not for everyone.
Right.
You know, everyone has their own purpose.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it just is life affirming.
For sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
gives you that encouragement to keep going.
Yes, for sure.
So, awesome. So I'm gonna start to close things out, but if there is like that one thing that you want people to remember to do to change something in their life, in their actions, what do what would that be? That one thing that you want people to really know?
I would say ask the hard questions, have the tough conversations. A lot of what we say in our work is, 61-minute conversations are much more impactful than one 60-minute conversation. So that just means have continuous conversations, check in on your people. Don't feel like if you met them one time for lunch, they're good for the next 6 months and you'll check in 6 months later. It's important for us, whether it's our adolescent or the child that we're working with, or it's our friend or our family member or whatever it might be, try to keep some consistent communication, especially if you know somebody is potentially struggling, and ask the tough questions. It's really, really hard to just ask somebody like, what's going on, or what are you dealing with, or share with me how you're feeling right now, because it's questions we don't often ask or are often asked of us, right? But it's so important, especially as adults who really support our adolescents or support one another, to ask the tough questions. Keep having the conversations, keep sharing with them the real science and information behind why you're maybe wanting to prevent them from using substances. Don't just say don't do drugs or don't do this, don't do that. Tell them why. Adolescents, I think it's natural for them to say well, why? And it's truly because they want to know. They're curious. Why should I not be?
They want to feel that connection. How is that relatable to me?
Exactly. And obviously at a certain age, make it relatable to their age, but they are capable of consuming that information.
Exactly.
Tell them about how it affects their brain and their development and how their brain is still developing, and how substances, especially like an opioid or more highly addictive substances, can actually impact the development of their brain, and essentially sets them back for the goals that they are wanting to achieve in life. So it's just having those conversations consistently and regularly, whether it's, like I said, with your kids, with your students, with your friends, your mom, your grandma, whoever it might be, right? Ask the tough questions, and have those conversations, because those conversations are truly what lead to helping people get help when they need it, right? A lot of people feel ashamed or scared or they don't know how to ask for help. But if you ask them, oftentimes they'll kind of share and disclose that they are maybe dealing with something. So
it opens that door to let them know that you're safe.
You care. If you're asking, it's because you care, right? And obviously coming from a place of empathy and all of that, not a judgment place, but just genuinely wanting to share information with them and protect them and help them reach their goals, really is all you're trying to do. So
well, exactly, it's living real, having that relational in-person conversation with people and being authentic about the reason you're there. Our society is so busy, and you pass someone in the hall, hey, how are you? And you don't really want to know. But stop and
ask.
Change that.
Exactly.
Really want to know about someone.
You never know how that relationship would change their life, but how could it change your life? Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing I would just say is in regards to fentanyl. Obviously, I said have the conversations, ask the tough questions. Right now, we have to be having conversations around fentanyl and what the dangers are of it. Talking to our adolescents about fentanyl being in everything. They're finding it in illicit THC vapes, prescription medications. They're even finding it in marijuana. There is fentanyl everywhere. I was on a webinar yesterday and they were talking about how even meth, they're like, meth isn't even meth anymore. It's mostly fentanyl. Cocaine is not even cocaine anymore. It's actually testing just almost fully fentanyl. So everything, right? Stimulants, opioids, general prescription medications,
pill,
Xanax,
powder,
pill powder, liquid, all of it. It's all being contaminated with fentanyl, and it's all related to money, right? People who sell these types of substances, they want power and they want money. And that's what it all goes back to, right? But it's so important to have conversations more now than ever with our adolescents. Whether you think fentanyl is in your community or not, it's there. And it's something that you need to start talking to your adolescents about, and really your loved ones. Anyone in your life who can hear that information should hear that information.
Exactly. It is so very important. And unfortunately, we know from a personal experience that it can happen to anyone in any situation. And I hear story after story after story about how they had no clue what they were doing, and fentanyl took their life. And it's an epidemic that needs to, stop. It is out of control. If over 100,000 people in a 12-month period die from drug use or substance use of any sort, and 85% of them are from fentanyl, something needs to be done. We need to continue talking about it and continue pushing our leaders and legislature to make a difference, to make a change.
Just do anything, right?
The littlest steps, can just help. And we can't just snap our fingers and it be gone. But let's continue moving forward to help saving lives. Because that's why we're here.
I always explain, the 108,000, I put it in, those of us who live in Illinois, it's pushing 2 full capacity soldier fields. So it's 1 and a little more than a half. Full capacity soldier fields. If you can imagine that stadium, full capacity, and then another half
of it
gone, just wiped out in 1 year. That's the amount of people. So I always try to visualize it for people as it's truly a large number of people, and families now being affected by the loss of those people.
Each one of those people know more than 100, more than 200, sometimes 600 people that were touched by that one person. And
the impact of those 100,000
that wave that
big.
hits.
Absolutely.
And so
comes down to conversations, right? That's where it comes down to. That's what prevention really is education and awareness, and it all starts with conversations, whether we're verbally sharing it or on social media or on YouTube like we're doing today. Whatever it might be, prevention and all of the work that we do comes down to just having real, empathetic, authentic conversations.
Perfect. So thank you, Abbie. I so appreciate you coming here, sharing a bit about yourself, in a personal way that will hopefully and I know it will touch somebody else that may have gone through a similar situation, and spur them on to just keep going and know that life is precious and we need to grab every moment of it. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Bev.
No problem.
Thank you for listening to the Real Life Vlog, where we talk about living a relational, empathetic, authentic, and loving life. Please make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our conversations. You can find more information on the Live Real Foundation at golivereal.org. Until next time, we wish you good health and encourage you to go live real.